Is on the role of verifiers in supply of high-quality carbon credits. The session aims to explore the critical role of verifiers in shaping the future of high-quality carbon markets by ensuring the integrity, transparency, and credibility of these credits. Chairing and moderating this session, we have Mr. Anton Svetov, Associate Director, Policy, Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. I would request him to please come up on stage. Could we have a round of applause for our chair and moderator, please? And we have a most esteemed group of panelists who will be joining us. Could we have Mr. Ajay Kumar Sharma, Joint Director, National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies, up on stage, please? A round of applause for our panelists. We then have Mr. Archit Srivastav, Vice President, Strategy and Growth from Earthhood. No worries. We have Mr. Alvin Lee, Regional Head for APAC from Puro Earth. We have Mr. Sebastian Cross, Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of B0. And finally, we have Mr. S. Vikash Ranjan, CEO of Pledge for Earth. Could we have a round of applause for all our panelists and our moderator, please?
Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to this session, which appears to be for only the strongest of heart at this time of the day. And I appreciate all of you coming here and joining us for this conversation. My name is Anton Svetov. I will be your moderator today for this panel, which will focus on, of all things, integrity, quality, and what verification can do for us here. Let me say a couple of words why I think this is important and why I think I was asked to moderate this esteemed panel today. First of all, a great congratulations to the Indian carbon market ecosystem and to be in particular for organizing this meeting and for progressing so much in the course of building an Indian carbon market ecosystem. And as it was mentioned a couple of times here before, at least in the area of verified, a very important word here, carbon credits and the markets for these credits, we have had quality and integrity being one of the major challenges we've seen over the course of last years. Buyers and stakeholders losing trust in what is being traded, project developers waiting to look for the next better investment, that which will enjoy demand, source of demand unclear, markets fragmenting across independent mechanisms, domestic crediting mechanisms, and all these different forms of divergence and convergence as a reaction to that. And so I present here the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. The Integrity Council is an independent governance body for the voluntary market. We introduced the core carbon principles and the assessment framework. We're now assessing carbon crediting programs and carbon crediting methodologies with regards to this quality threshold. And a lot of news coming up soon. But the idea is that by establishing a common threshold of quality for carbon credits, we can standardize the market, we can let the market grow, essentially, and provide the capacity for cost-efficient mitigation and private finance flows to developing countries. Now, verification is, of course, a crucial part of this. This is arguably a part of the definition of a carbon credit. It is verified. So it's a constituting feature, if you may. Though at the Integrity Council, we do have some regulations that relate to verification of VVBs, and we are working on a whole new continuous improvement work program this year to deliver and provide thought leadership on what the next step for verification is. And I think this panel today here is a great opportunity for us to reflect on some of the lessons learned across the ecosystem and see what are the next steps for leveraging verification to instill higher quality and integrity in the market. So I would sort of call upon my panel today to be useful to our hosts today and provide lessons learned and reflect on some of the experience they've had across their work. But to start us off, we will have scene-setting presentation from Mr. Pankaj Kalyani on accreditation eligibility criteria and procedure for accredited carbon verification agencies. Pankaj, please, the floor is yours. Can you please make sure the mic is working on the podium?
Hello. Thanks, Anton. As to the esteemed dignitaries, delegates who are present, and Anton mentioned that how the role of verifiers will be, and for that we need a robust framework. So in this session moving forward, we'll see the role of verifiers, the role of technology, the challenges associated with the same. But before that, to give you the context, here is a small presentation. This is on the accreditation eligibility criteria and the accreditation procedures for the ACVS. That is a part of the Indian carbon market, a document which has been released by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Next slide, please. So as you can see on the screen, the objective of this document was to provide the minimum eligibility requirements for an agency to accredit itself. And the second was, once it has been accredited, that it lays down the detailed procedure in the transparent manner. So how to carry out the validation and or the verification process. This is true to both the compliance mechanism as well as the offset mechanism part. Now coming back to the scope of accreditation. In the scope of accreditation, there are first, when we talk about the compliance mechanism, these are the 9 sectors list which has been approved by the ministry and central government, and these are the carry out from the PAT regime also. Earlier it was in the tons of oil equivalent. Now we are doing it in the ton of CO2. So in this, the hard to abate sectors as well as the not includes aluminium, cement, chloralkali, iron and steel, fertilizer, petrochemical, refining, pulp and paper, and textile. So these are the 9 sectors which have been approved, and any agency which wants to accredit in even one or more than one sectors needs to apply for the accreditation process. Now, if you look at the offset part of it, there are 10 sectors which have been approved by the central government, and these are energy, industries, waste, transport, agriculture, and forestry. If you look at the first phase that we have mentioned, so the second phase will start once the 6 months of phase 1 has been completed. Then the remaining 4 sectors will come into force. So for now, these are the 6 sectors. What was the rationale behind drawing up of this 10 sectors overall was the UNFCCC's Clean Development Mechanism, that is CDM, as well as the updated Article 6.4 list. So in that, in the erstwhile CDM, it was 15 sectors. If you add the Article 6.4 accreditation draft procedures and standards earlier, so it became, there were 2 more sectors which has been added. One was on the carbon removal side and was on the other CCUS. So these are the 2 sectors which have been added. What we did was, in case of the Indian carbon market framework, instead of taking energy industries, energy demand, and the transformation side, transformers and distribution side different, we have clubbed those subsectors into one and we called it energy. So similarly, when we talk about industries, in the erstwhile CDM, it was metal and mining and other industries like cement was being laid down as separately. We have clubbed into one, and all the industries are part of the sector called industries. In agriculture, we will consider the biochar projects. In the forest, there will be some of the amalgamation happening between the agriculture and forestry. So the nodal agencies, ministries are also being tied up to that. So these are the first 6 sectors, and you also seen the traction recently. In January, Bureau of Energy identified 12 methodologies for adoption in CCTS, and these 12 methodologies, each of these 6 sectors were identified. And this is just the first set of groundwork that has been laid for these sectors. Once we have completed that adoption and approval by central government, we will be adding gradually 10 to 15 methodologies every 3-6 months. So as I was explaining, the second set of 4 sectors, the solvent use, fugitive emission, carbon capture and utilization, and construction, this will come into force once the first 6 months of the first 6 sectors has been completed. Now, what are the minimum eligibility criteria as you were mentioning? So there are 4 important parameters: the team lead, the second is the verifiers, the third is the independent reviewer, and fourth is the technical sector expert. If you go on the team lead, there is a minimum criteria for that. When we talk about the compliance, it has to be an accredited energy auditor, AES. In case of verifier, we have given the relaxation that it can be a certified energy auditor, but team, in case of the compliance mechanism, specifically to the team lead, the condition, that minimum condition has to be, it has to be accredited energy verifier. There is a one condition: if there is only one full-time lead in the organization, then there would be a need to hire on part-time basis or full-time the independent reviewer. In addition to that, there are technical / sector experts. So if you talk about the compliance mechanism, the mandated one, in that we have it's the terminology which differs. The sector expert, when we are talking about the offset mechanism part, we are calling those as technical experts. The detailed procedure is already on the website. So if you want the educational qualifications in addition to the ISO clarifications, these are all in detail provided under subheaders. Now the other important setting is the performance, how the performance of the ACVAs would be carried out. So in this, once they have completed a particular cycle, say year or two, carried out projects, both I'm talking about the compliance as well as the offset. And if I'm specifically talking about offset, so the validation and verification reports that they be generated, so they will be asked by Bureau to submit those reports on annual basis. Bureau will scrutinize those reports, and basis on that there would be some corrective actions which will be identified, if there is any, with respect to the compliance or non-compliance of the following activity, verification activity. Once it has been identified by the Bureau and communicated to the accredited carbon verification agencies, and if they have not still complied with it, then there would be a subject to some actions. And finally, the decisions based on the monitoring. So there is an accreditation advisory committee which has been put into practice with a couple of line ministries. So they will take whether, based on the performance of the monitoring of the ACVAs, the Bureau may decide to either continue or suspend their accreditation. So this is the document which has been released in the public document. All the detailed guidelines with respect to each of the educational qualifications, work qualifications are highlighted into it, and you can just go and download on it. So from my side, that's all. Thank you, Anton, and you can start the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. I will go straight to the panel for a round of questions. Those of you in the audience cannot see this, but there's a very threatening timer here looking at us, and the timer says 20 minutes, which we will do our best to fit in. So I'll go with the first round of questions to our participants. But if you think that our generous MC forgot to mention something that we would like to add to your sort of introduction, any line of what you think is important for the audience to know what you do, please do so when you go to the first question. So I'll start with Alvin. Now, Alvin, Pure Earth is one of the carbon crediting programs that are of this exciting new generation, which focuses a lot on removals. And we have heard just here now from Pankaj that the accreditation systems are adapting to the interest to this sector of the market. So I'd like to ask you to reflect a little bit on what you think are the main sort of challenges and some of the lessons learned around monitoring verification for removals in particular.
Sure. Thank you very much, Anton. So yeah, as you mentioned, we're focused on removals. We operate mainly in the voluntary carbon market, although Puro does have the ability to support Article 6.2 type transactions as well. In our case, for removals, there are several key things that we look for. So if you look at our methodologies, there's always a focus on what is the core driver of the removal. For example, in the case of biochar carbon removal, what needs to be operating? Or in the case of enhanced rock weathering, what's supposed to be happening? And once those, what we call general principles, are described, then from there, everything else follows. There has to be a very specific quantity that we're measuring, which is how much carbon is stored in that method. And then there are what we refer to as deductions. So if you're running a biochar facility, how many emissions are you generating to move the biomass or to run your machine? Similarly for enhanced rock weathering. To perform the weathering, how are you moving the rock powder, things like that. So in the case of the data, the project developer has to have that data to justify all the amount of storage that they're claiming, and then also clearly articulate what emissions that they incurred along the way. So all that will have to be presented, and it is then the task of the verifiers to go through and vet all that in detail. So we work very closely with the VVB community to ensure that they understand those methodologies and then make sure they can carry out their tasks. As you said, it's early in the cycle, but it's going quite well, I think.
Thank you very much, Alvin. And I think it's sort of very useful for you that you positioned the different players here, right? The carbon crediting program itself, the project developers, and the verifiers. And a very important part of this is the accreditation bodies, and this I think was where I'd like to come to you, Ajay, and sort of what you would say are the key sort of lessons learned and trends you've observed in the last years in terms of how accreditation bodies oversee VVBs, and what are some of the interesting things you're picking up on the last years?
As far as the extradition and the validation verification bodies, or commonly we are talking today as verifiers, so it's been an interesting journey. It's been a learning for all the stakeholders therein. I mean, learning from right from the extradition bodies to the verifiers to the project proponents. What we have seen from the initial days when there were assessments to be carried out or the orders to be carried out for the verifiers, I mean, they hardly used to have proper projects or works executed. They used to offer the CDM projects under various, the validation or verification under 64-1 or 64-2 standard, as the case may be. So from there we thought and that this process has to be matured more, and we saw that transition into a more structured kind of validation or verification that was carried out by the verification bodies. And today we see that yes, they have graduated to a very matured level, but still there are some specific areas I would say that needs to be reinforced to give a more credible and transparent the carbon credit verification. So the areas in terms of understanding the standards, understanding the implications and the applicability of a standard, whether it's applicable to a project proponent or to the verifiers or to the accreditation bodies. So those clarity in the concepts of the standards is really important. The applicability of the standard is also of prime importance. Unless we understand that, the verifiers understand those applicability, the concepts therein, what's the difference between a baseline and a baseline scenario, where to apply. In case of validation, you have a baseline scenario. In verification, you need to have a baseline. Or the level of assurances, whether the project attracts additionality or not. So these are some core fundamentals wherein that has to be worked more by the verifiers, and I hope they would be able to do more justice in the coming time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, moving to Archit, you're the VVB, right? You're the one we're talking about. So I'll be happy to give you the opportunity to talk for the industry, and whether things that were said so far in this panel you think resonate with you, and which of these you would think as would be the priority for you, and some things you would maybe share with us on how this reflects on your work, on your everyday work. Please.
No, for sure. Thank you very much. Glad to be here. So everything does resonate very well, sits well with us. Something what Alvin said, that it is the role of the verifiers to go out in the field and just verify and ensure that whatever the claims that the project developers are putting together are actually true, so that somebody like a bureau can put a stamp of authority and issue the credits. The gravity escalates as soon as you start talking about Article 6 as well, because till the time you are still voluntary, does not mean that you are sacrificing on the quality, but the added level of check that needs to be done for an Article 6 kind of a project that increases with time. And at the same time, I do understand that the competency levels of the verifiers also need constant upgradation. And with that, as soon as there are verifiers who are able to understand what are the systematic requirements so that their work can actually translate into something which is called a high quality credit at the end of the day. So coming to that, I would say, in my head, a high quality credit would be something which is maybe hitting a lot of SDGs, maybe where the data is so transparent that you do not have to really dig deep into it and everything is visible. Whatever went down in the project scenario, right from the field, the data is automated and coming directly to the verifiers. Whatever verifier is asking questions on, everything is traceable. And then going on to the standards. So if the standard puts a log in, and that's how they can see whatever has been the history of the data sets, whatever has been the process that the auditors have followed. So that will eventually, in a way, reflect in a high quality credit or a high quality project. So with that, I'd just like to take a moment and share that with Earthlink, it's a proprietary tool that we have built, and that's automating the workflows of the auditing companies and the verifiers that we have. And the end game of this is to API it on the left side and the right side. So left being the project developer and right being the standard in that sense. So that is where we aim to go with that. And it will just help across in bringing a lot of transparency for Alvin's team to see whatever the data cycle has been, and also to NABCB saying that this is one project that I would like to see, whatever you did, so everything is on the system and everything is time-stamped, everything is name-tagged, whatever document versions, quality management systems, controls, all documents will be just in a fashion where things can be streamlined, and the workloads for the project developer going on to the auditors, to the standards, and to the certifying bodies can also be eased.
Thank you very much for this. And I think it's a great segue into Sebastian, who I want to call to the floor next. I mean, there are all these, and I think Archit sort of lined them up, some of the key considerations for carbon credit quality and integrity, and we have all these layers and players in how this is defined, and sort of for an external audience in particular, of whether one can say a credit is good or not. You have meta standards like the core carbon principles, you have the standards themselves, you have the verifiers, you have accounting systems like Article 6, 6.2, for example, and whether it is an ITMA or not, whether there was a corresponding adjustment or not, and all the elements. And I think it's really exciting, and I'll ask Sebastian, you to sort of come in on this, and where do rating agencies come in, and what is the specific relationship between the work that you do and verification?
Yeah, thanks, Anton, and thanks to B for inviting me to be here today. So yeah, B0, we are a carbon rating agency. Why do we exist? So, yeah, as we've heard so far, verification is a vital part of the carbon markets in ensuring that projects follow a certain methodology and that you have that third-party audit in place to ensure that they are doing as they're reporting and that the data is reliable. And indeed, you know, we're seeing greater and greater improvements in the data that's available there over time. But any verifier who's looked at multiple projects will tell you that there's no one way to follow a methodology. Methodologies are like recipes. And so to I guess, make that example with a fun British cultural reference that will hopefully wake the room up, fish and chips. If I gave everyone in this room the recipe for fish and chips, do you think you'd all produce the same dish? So, think about the chips. The type of potato matters, right? How many times you cook the potato. We now have triple cooked chips in the UK. It's become very, very popular to cook the potato 3 times, so it's extra crispy. The type of fish, the type of batter, I could go on. Obviously, I'm trying to be a bit ridiculous here to make the point, but this gives rise to a really important challenge for the market. Every single project is different, right? The beauty of the carbon market is that it captures so many different project types, and methodologies are doing a fantastic job in constantly improving to try and give the guidelines through which projects can follow the process to issue a credit. Verifiers can sign off that the process has been followed, and indeed, the credit is legitimate. But that does not negate the fact that every single credit will have underlying that a different outcome, and that is the risk that ratings pick up. Why do you want that? Well, in a market that captures such variety, if you don't understand risk, when it emerges that there is risk in the market, people lose confidence in the market. Right? If you're a buyer and you're told that what you're buying is exactly a ton of carbon, there are no risks, and it turns out that maybe that's not the case, then you quite rightly say, well, I don't understand the market. It's very hard to build confidence in it. And indeed, this has been the downfall of the market, the carbon markets historically, that every single credit has been labeled a ton with no accounting for risk. So ratings provide a very complementary service to verification. We are not a VVB. We do not replace the need for verification in the market. We provide a complementary additional layer to the market that allow buyers to understand risk, and indeed, particularly in thinking about the integration of credits into compliance markets, increasingly we're allowing governments to understand risks. Right? For a credit to be integrated into a compliance market, you are saying that the credit is as good as a decarbonisation solution it's replacing. That is a high bar to meet. You have to understand risk if you're going to get that equation right. And so it's very exciting to see what's happening in India and indeed elsewhere, with a growing role for carbon markets to play in the integration with compliance schemes, whether that's taxes or ETSs. But we cannot make the same mistakes as the past. We have to get it right this time, and to do that, you have to take account of risk, and ratings are here to help do that. Hopefully that helps.
That was great. Thanks, Sebastian. Vikash, now over to you, sort of to wrap up this first round of questions. What do you think what has just been said by the panelists tells us about the next phase for verification, and what role verification plays in instilling high integrity in carbon markets?
Thank you, Anton, and thank you, B, for being here. Look, I have been gone through with the complete process of perform, achieve, and trade earlier, and the verification process was very complex. And at the same time, there are lots of issues which was focused completely on the authenticity of verifications, the transparency of verifications, the data captured. So I think it has to be very simple in all respect. So verifier, I think there is no need at present. Why I'm saying this? Because if you have to verify something, you are going for inspecting the things, basically. So the better way to go for the verification is go for the complete automation of the process, complete digitalization of the process, and you have only a limited access for the verifications at the moment in the last systems. So the process has to be very simple. It has to be made very simple, and at the same time, it needs complete automations from the industry's end. If I am talking about the compliance mechanism. But at the same time, if it is offset market, has to be a different approach altogether. Like I said, if I can give you an example of verifications, there is a huge input with respect to GCV of a fuel, right? And it has to be tested internally and externally both. But if you see the difference, we have made the difference at around 71.7 kilocalorie, but the difference are more when you testing the same coal inside the factory and outside the lab. The lab's equipments are different. So the systems has to be made in a very simple way. So verifications after 5, 6 years has to be very simple, and it has to be targeted based approach. That means a plant require a verification only when it is needed. If it is not needed, if it is completely automated, and all the data which is coming, which is there in the industry, which is coming inside any of the softwares, and that the data could itself verify the complete SEC or a GI of a systems. Like the two things is measured in GI, right? One is the CO2 emissions, and the second thing is about the equivalent product. So the two things has to be made in that way, in that a professional way, that it comes automatically to the agencies or the government, and it will set automatically. So verifications is basically an Inspector Raj for me. It has to be very simple, and the approach should be like that everybody can get the transparent systems, can get the data easily and inspire the world. That's what.
Thank you for that, and I think it's very important that you're raising the point of simplification and the point of sort of targeting our approaches. And I think there's a lot of, I think in the scene setting presentation, we also heard about the main considerations for sort of establishing a verification system and for it to be effective, efficient, independent, and we'll go a little bit into some of the elements of that, and specifically focusing on starting with digital MRV, which you mentioned. Wanted to go to Alvin for this and sort of get his views on what, from your perspective, some of the implications of the arrival of digitalization and digital MRV to the market, and what can that do to the market? How can that help, and how can everybody use that to their better good?
Yeah, I'll just preface by saying that for some time now, we have asked project developers or suppliers to get all their data to us in digital form. So using the cloud, folders on the cloud to organize information. Now, going forward, I would highlight two major things that we think can further improve things. So firstly, the ability to transmit information about your project using APIs and specific schemas. And then the second thing is what implication that might have on more frequent issuance of credits. Because something we frequently hear from project developers is, can we issue more frequently and help us manage our cash flow better? So in general, we would observe that DMRV could solve both of these, or help both of these things. So in the first case, of course, moving beyond just cloud and sending data to us in schema format. So this is already being piloted, and I think will become increasingly popular. And then the second thing is, if that data can be transmitted regularly by project developer, can the whole system collaborate with VVBs to figure out ways in which audits can take place in, they can continue to be very robust audits annually, but can we have accelerated versions in the interim periods to facilitate some more frequent credit issuance? And we believe the answer is yes. So there's a lot of work happening in this area, DMRVs enabling that.
Thanks, Sullivan. And sort of continuing the thread of what's happening and the continuous improvement, let's say, in the verification space. Ajay, if I may go to you, sort of what are the approaches and what's considered good practice in terms of ensuring that from the accreditation body's perspective, verifiers are abreast of the skills they need, the digital technology they can use, and sort of maintaining their performance over time?
So I feel that yes, initially, as is applicable for any of the technologies or the conformities and schemes, the GHG and the carbon market verification is slowly coming up to a second level of verification. And to improve it further, there are a couple of points that needs to be reinforced. The first one in terms of the capacity building. Capacity building in terms of the global standards, the global methodologies under various schemes, voluntary or statutory, and thereafter the various requirements therein that needs to be properly supported with case studies, because that would help the assessors to take proper decisions. I'll give you an example wherein we are doing an assessment of a verification agency, and it was for a big petroleum complex in India, and it obviously had presently, other than the other process units, it had a power plant captive of its own, and there were the GHG identification emission sources, the extra high voltage breakers normally use the SF6, and that though there was no leakage reported, but the agency forgot to take that into consideration as far as the verification of the various GHG emission sources. So these type of case studies need to be built up in the capacity building sessions to give them the real-time support and the capability to augment these capacities as a verifier. Also, the use of harmonizing the various reporting formats is also required. For example, I can give you for the CAOS, the International Civil Aviation Organization for Aviation, they have their CORSIA scheme, and which have their own templates. So that helps in reducing the variations in the reporting business by the assurance providers. It also helps in better MRV reporting, and so is the case with other voluntary scheme owners. But that also needs to be fine-tuned so as to have a level playing field and the reporting of the verifications. So these are a few areas in which we would see that they should go ahead for bringing more credibility to the carbon market assurance.
Thank you very much. And I will ask Archie to maybe also comment on this as well, picking up from what Ajay just said on the skills and the training. Would you say, where are we in terms of the talent pool? Do we have enough? I mean, clearly, if you can fill a room like this and 2 rooms like this in Delhi, focusing only on carbon markets, clearly there is a lot of endowment to work with. But more broadly, in developing countries in particular, but how ready the talent pool is for all these developments in the verification scene, and what can we do more here?
Somebody who used to be a fantastic carbon auditor back in the days after the first heartbreak, they course corrected themselves and became a fantastic ESG consultant or a head of sustainability somewhere else. So there has been a loss in the terms of talent pool by and large. And yes, it is across the board. I mean, a lot of project developers are looking for good people. A lot of auditors are looking for good people all the time. A lot of standards, I mean, the 2 bigger standards of the world, Go Standard and Vera, are terribly short-staffed on the right set of people so that they can churn out the works rather efficiently. This has been going around since the last 5 years at least, and it's very evident the problem is there. And especially with the new technologies or the new sectors developing, like AFLU or maybe CCUS, if we talk about. So there is not a lot of talent pool available out there in the market to be hired or picked up by any of the standards or any of the verifiers or, so to say, the rating agencies as well. So people are on the constant lookout. Every now and then, one of my industry colleagues will give me a call, hey, buddy, do you have a person who suits this kind of a profile? The answer is no, it's not there, because not enough institutions are training, coaching, and developing, at least here in India. cut to Africa, there is absolutely nobody. People on the ground are the only ones that we have. We have to train, coach, develop them in a fashion that they are probably ready to become an auditor a couple of years down the line, but that is just too long. The gestation period over there, the amount of investment that it needs, it is a bit much. And it is across geographies. I'll talk about Indonesia, talk about Singapore. Singapore, yes, has got a lot of talent pool coming out of the NUS, but at the same time, the people who are needed on various sectoral scopes are just not quite there.
So a lot of room for growth. Then hopefully that a growth in the market will inspire people to join the market and to work for it. Sebastian, if I may come to you on a specific point, we're talking about all these innovations and these changes in the market and new things that verifiers and everyone in this ecosystem has to keep abreast of. And one of the things is Article 6, mentioned a lot over the course of today, and I think there's a whole session coming up, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow. Can you elaborate a little bit on the sort of where is the overlap and where does the world of Article 6 touch the world of rating agencies and the work you do at project level?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess this is a really exciting application for ratings because, having rated over 500 projects, predominantly in the voluntary carbon market to date, which you can go and find on our website, by the way. They're freely available. Anyone can go and see all the projects that we have. We've got a number that we've rated here in India. Ratings have gone from not being correlated with pricing in the market to now seeing a relatively strong correlation. The fact that ratings are correlated with pricing is obviously getting the interest of developers, but countries too. And so when thinking about Article 6, countries on both the buy side and the supply side are using ratings and using our database. On the buy side, those buyer countries are thinking about what projects they want to be purchasing credits from, what countries they want to be purchasing credits from. Again, this idea that if you're purchasing a credit against your NDC, you have to be confident that the credit is equivalent to whatever internal decarbonisation you're not doing. And so governments are very wary of making that claim and are using ratings internally within their own processes as a way of making that choice. But I guess most interesting on the supply side, with Article 6 having just been finalised, you have a number of supply side countries who are trying to work out how to use it. It's a huge opportunity, right? If we can get carbon markets right, then for a number of countries that have huge supply potential, they can attract investment opportunities, they can attract new technologies. You look at India with its whitelist as an example of the project types that it wants to be financing. The fact that ratings are one of the drivers of price in the market is obviously of interest to supply countries because they want to be attracting premiums for the credits that they are going to authorize to allow to be sold in the market. And so, a number of countries are using our database to work out which sectors they want to be focused on, how they want to be thinking about writing legislation for what gets authorized, how they think about risk in this market. And we're also just doing a lot of carbon markets training as well. The rating is a lens through which you can view the market, particularly for the large number of people, as has been mentioned, that are coming to this quite fresh. That's all in the back end at the moment. So ratings are kind of playing this role in the back end. But what I think you'll start to see emerge over time is the use of ratings in the front end for buyer countries. What does that mean? Well, if you look at a country like Singapore, Singapore has its eligibility criteria for which credits it will allow to be paid against its carbon tax. And at the moment, they're top-down principles and methodology based, but ultimately they're trying to control for the risk of credits that are coming into the market. They're increasingly starting to look at ratings as a way of doing that. And so I think over time, you'll start to see a number of schemes look to write ratings into the rulebook for how they operate, because we are the metric that actually captures where risk sits, which is at the project level, and we capture over time. Right, our ratings are live. We track projects in close to real time and are often the first to know if something has happened at a project. And so this is a really important innovation for the market in being able to manage risk and design higher integrity schemes. But it's particularly important for developers and countries thinking about wanting to supply credits to this market in the future. You have to account for project level risk, and ratings are a metric that allow you to do that.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for also highlighting, I think this is important, the correlation argument between price and quality and integrity. I mean, it should seem obvious for other markets where quality usually correlates with the price, but I think it's a point very well worth making. Before I go back to Vikash for one more question, I just want to say, much like the carbon market, this panel has been given a second chance, and we have a little bit of time left. So we will be taking a couple of questions from the floor. So please, if think of one or two while I go back to Vikash and ask him to sort of maybe touch upon a little bit, make a step upwards, and talk about regulation and standardization, and what regulators and standard setters can do to make sure that verification delivers higher quality and higher integrity.
Absolutely right. There is a need of the hour that the regulators should set a standard that meet the required standard internationally. So I think accreditation processes, what has been developed by the regulator, it seems to be okay right now. But at the same time, it has to be very stringent. As actually told by other panelists, that the specialist in the market is very rare these days. They become a rare species now, and the experiences of those rare species is not with the regulator, or not within the auditing agencies or verifier. So that needs to be very much in line with the standards, international standards, and also the industry standard which is being followed at present. So I think there's a need for a audit of the verifiers as well. Those who have given the accreditations, they should be audited by the regulator, and at the same time they can give the rating as well. They can give the rating to the verifier, which verifier is having a 5-star rated or 4-star rated. That means they will earn more if they are 5-star rated with their resources that is available with them. So that is how it can be made very much stringent or very much marketable in all aspects. So the main thing is about the verifications, and also there should be a very much clear verification protocol, which again lies with the regulator. How they are going to give this protocol to the verifier, so that they can go to the industries, to the systems or procedures are there. They can understand easily and verify those systems. So these are the things from my part as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a question on the floor? Yes, we have a hand over there. Can we have the mic to the lady in the second row, please? Yes, please.
Is this working? Yeah.
Yes.
It is to the entire panel, but specifically to Alvin or Archit. When you speak of digital MRV, what are some emergent attitudes towards liability at large? Because if there aren't, if there's an auditor, etc., you can still hold a person liable. But if you are augmenting the services that you offer with, let's say, a Gen AI model, etc., what happens to liability situation in that case, and how are emergent companies dealing with that, emergent verification agencies?
Thank you for that. So the question is about liability in case of digital MRV. Do we have one more from the floor? If not, oh, there we have one more. So let's take two, and then we can bring it back to the panel. Please.
Sir, your name and your organization.
Yes, please introduce yourself as well. Yes, it's working.
Yes. My name is C.K. Verma, and I do not belong to any organization. I'm a freelancer. So my question to the entire panel is, you have written here as a thematic track, high quality carbon credits. I'm not able to understand this high quality, because can this high quality be quantified, or it is still remain to be unquantified for more times? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is a big one. We can dedicate the next 24 hours to discussing that. But so I suggest we take the more specific question first, and then we go for whoever wants. I think I'm looking at Sebastian. I'm thinking maybe he might have something to say about quality, whether it will be quantified. Maybe our letters considered to be quantification, A, B, C. Let's start with the digital MRV question. Yeah, liability, please, Arshad.
So to answer your question, ma'am, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but the liability still remains with the auditor, and things happen absolutely in the same manner. It's just that instead of having PDFs exchanged over emails, we are verifying something over a portal where all the data is put down in a schema of things, and then we raise questions over there, we get those answers, and then that's how we make the submission. So whoever is the auditor, whoever is the person, the company, the liability remains absolutely with the auditor. And also, as an extension to your question, the liability of checking whether the schema or the sub-schema of things are functioning properly in the overall algorithm, that also remains with the same auditing company or the precise auditor.
Thank you very much. Is that a question or a comment, sir?
I'm auditing agency based on, I want to give the
Okay, please.
question. My name is Pradeep Dingra. I am a credit energy auditor from PGS Energy Services Private Limited, having 22-year experience in the auditing agency. My two questions are there to all of
Questions,
you. Okay. See, he said the liability on an auditor, right? It is totally based on the documents which OE provides or industry provides, right? Based on that, the decision or plus or minus credits are given, right? So liability on auditor is based on the facts and figures provided by the auditing DC or this one. That is the first thing. And I agree with Mr. Vikas Ranjan that there should be rating to the agencies to be given A class, B class or C class. I don't know the international experience, but those who perform and do well for the Bureau of Energy Efficiency or this one do best audits, they should be awarded, and the scope and all these things to be considered higher in this matter. Okay. So that is my point is there, that the liability should not be only on the auditor.
It's more of a comment that liability should not be not only.
So just to answer you very quickly, sir, I totally appreciate that, but the auditor is being paid to come to an opinion. The opinion can be a positive one or a negative one. So the auditor is only liable for the opinion that he is arriving at. Obviously, that is based on the data, and the opinion can be a good one or a bad one.
Based on the facts and figure provided by the industry or audit, then auditor decides. It's so transparent.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it's a separate breakout group we're going into. We can suggest that this conversation happens over coffee. Going to the very fundamental question, I think we should be a great way to wrap this panel up. On quality, what does it mean? Can it be quantified? I mean, I have an answer to that. Sebastian, go ahead.
It's a very good question. It's the $100 billion question. 2 points I'd make. Firstly, on quality versus risk, and then on the ability to quantify it. So the carbon markets are quite weird in how they talk about quality, because quality is a subjective term. Carbon markets are fantastic because they capture lots of different characteristics. The problem when you say high quality is that my opinion of high quality may differ from everyone on the panel, and that's thinking about how you balance not only the carbon benefits that a project brings, but maybe the biodiversity or the socio-economic impact or the whole host of other benefits that projects bring. And so the point that I'm always trying to impress on people is that our rating does not measure quality, it measures risk. The rating is on a scale from AAA to single D, looking at the likelihood that a credit achieves a ton of carbon, and therefore it's the carbon risk. It's a single metric. And that's why it's quite handy, because we can apply that metric anywhere in the world, and it's the same question that we're answering. So slight difference between quality and risk, but I think it's important that we increasingly talk in these terms, because for the market to scale and mature, we can't be stuck on different definitions of quality when you're trying to bundle in lots of different metrics that you can't actually compare. But from a risk perspective, can you quantify the outcome of the carbon credit from a carbon perspective? Increasingly more so, with the amount of data that's being gathered, with digital MRV, the frequency and the cadence of data is better than it's ever been. Unfortunately, another quirk of the carbon market is this idea of baselines and counterfactuals. And as a rating agency, it makes it really frustrating to rate projects sometimes, because the problem with the counterfactual is I can never be proven right. You can never observe the counterfactual of, if the project didn't go ahead, would this activity have taken place otherwise? And so it actually makes performance really, really hard to track. So increasingly, we are able to quantify more and more, but you will never get to a point where you can say with 100% certainty that a credit has achieved a ton of carbon, because you always have a baseline, you always have a counterfactual, and that is unobservable data. All we can do is introduce more and more data to tackle that question and get higher and higher confidence that a project is additional, that its baseline is robust. But unfortunately, there are elements of the data that are just unobservable, and that does mean that there will always be some element of risk. But again, that's fine. If we acknowledge that there's risk in the market and deal with it, actually it's very manageable. It's when you try and ignore that risk and hope that it will go away that it becomes problematic.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. I think that really sets a good sort of scene for what quality, I think, is. I mean, and as by way of summing up, what we do at the Integrity Council, we just only provide a threshold for quality, for integrity. We say this above this threshold, everything is, up to our standard that we have, meta standard that we have produced together with the market to arrive at a consensus on what good looks like above a certain threshold. I mean, it's I think if you ask the room what constitutes quality, you will get a ballpark. You won't get a ruler which will say this is 5, this is 6, right? But clearly, and there's room for risk assessment within those thresholds and even below maybe those thresholds. So just to wrap up, I think some of the notes I've made for this panel, and thank you again for your insightful comments today. I think it's verification is a crucial sort of element in this. In the triple frying of the chip, it's one of the essential fryings. Or maybe at least the second frying of the chip. And it's very important that we have these rules for verifiers, how they are overseen, how they are how they evolve together with the market, how they keep abreast of the innovation happening there. So we have all these parts of the puzzle coming in and eventually getting us to higher quality credits that are preferably compliance grade and as good as a ton that was never emitted in the first place. So I thank you all for this, and please join me in thanking the panel with me.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the audience for engaging in the session, and thank you to our panelists and our chair for their astute observations and comments. I would like to call upon Ms. Meenakshi from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency to felicitate our panelists as well as our moderator. First, we have Mr. Ajay Kumar Sharma. Could we get a round of applause for our panelists, please? Then we have Mr. Archit Srivastav. We have Mr. Alvin Lee. We have Mr. Sebastian Cross. We have Mr. S. Vikas Ranjan. And finally, we have our chair and moderator, Mr. Anton Tsvetov. Could I please request all the panelists and our chair to come together for a group photo, and I would request Ms. Meenakshi to join the photo as well. Thank you so much, everyone who joined the session. I'd just like to mention that the next session, which is plenary session 2, will be taking place in the Oval Room, and I think it will start in the next couple of minutes. The plenary session 2, which is the last session of today, is on the implication of the global carbon market mechanism on the country's climate goals. I would request everyone to move back into the Oval Room, which is where we started our day for the last session of the day. Thank you so much.